So I think that we are on air. Thank you very much, Niels. Thank you, Mr. Butenab, for this brief introduction. Good morning and welcome, everybody. Martin, would you please share our slides? My name is Frank Feuerbach. I am the local coordinator at the CHEMNITZ'S URBACT team. And Martin Neubert and I will lead you through this next few slides of our brief introduction this morning. As we've heard already from Mr. Butenab, CHEMNITZ is in the southeast of Germany, in the state of Saxony. And CHEMNITZ was heavily destroyed in the Second World War. If you go to the next slide, please. After the Second World War, CHEMNITZ was renamed after Karl Marx, and it was rebuilt as a socialist city. You can see this on the picture to the left. And all the resources for housing fact used for these prefabricated apartment buildings, which you can see on the building on the picture to the left. And by focusing on these socialist principles and the Charter of Athens, the remaining historic neighborhoods were neglected and somehow forgotten. And that had also some positive effects because they were kind of undisturbed when the wall came down in 1989. Next slide, please. In fact, almost all the historic buildings were in a very bad condition in 1989. And in the 1990s, CHEMNITZ population declined. We heard that already due to suburbanization and the deindustrialization that forced many thousand people to move away, to leave the region. And as a result of that, CHEMNITZ has an oversupply of cheap apartment buildings ever since. But even though almost 19,000 dwellings were demolished with federal money since 2002, the vacancy rate is still high. So despite some urbanization processes, we can observe many historic neighborhoods show a severe lack of modernization and high vacancy rates. So therefore, the city had to come up with some solutions in order to increase the confidence of private investors and in order to save the historic housing stock. So this was, in a nutshell, the background of the so-called Agentur StadtWohnen, CHEMNITZ, which is the alternative building activation unit in CHEMNITZ. Martin, would you please tell us more about the agency and its work and the beginning of our European journey that enabled us to form this outbound network, please?
Thank you very much, Frank. My name is Martin Neubert. I'm the project coordinator for the Untitled Transfer Network and also the project manager for the good practice that CHEMNITZ worked on. I'm not an employee of the city of CHEMNITZ, but I'm working for a private development company, which has been commissioned and approached with the problem that we have here in CHEMNITZ. On the picture, you can see an example of this problem. We have literally hundreds of unused tenement buildings from the Gründerzeit era before the First World War that have fallen empty after the reunification of Germany and even before, and that are in a really bad shape. As you can see here, a problem of decay, dry rot, vandalism, all different kinds of things happening to those buildings. And the question was, how can we get rid of this problem that we have in CHEMNITZ? How can we revive all the qualities that these buildings have? So at the beginning, we started with an analysis of what's in the city. So we chose three main focus areas, one in the Sonnenberg neighborhood and two in the Schloss Chemnitz neighborhood, where we identified 100 buildings roughly altogether that were in this kind of state and decay. And the agency was founded. The city of Chemnitz, with the different departments that are involved in the development of those buildings, the urban planning department, building control department, preservation, finance and tax, etc., that all have their stake in there, decided to go on and create this Agentur StadtWohnen in Chemnitz to tackle this problem, really to work as a mediator between the different stakeholders in the process. The VGS, our private development company, was chosen. We have been working together with the city of Chemnitz for many years for urban development, in grant management, urban planning, etc. And so the agency was founded as a coordination hub between the different stakeholders. As you can see here in the next slide, as a municipal project carried out by a private actor, and coordinating between the different stakeholders. First and foremost, of course, owners, investors, and users, which we're going to talk about later in this webinar today, but also other professional stakeholders. And I think
Martin,
this is one
that
of
we
the
cannot hear you
strengths
at the moment.
of the agency, that it really connects the different spheres of interest in the field. What is more, one of the central strategies is really to bring the people back to the surface, really to raise awareness of those buildings, that we're publishing and marketing the buildings to some degree. And we've come to some results, which I'm going to show you in the next few slides. So originally, of the 100 buildings that we started with in our main 3 focus areas in 2012, by 2020, 71 buildings changed owners, which is one of the key developments that took place. And from there, it followed on. 42 buildings have been renovated or are being renovated with public support in one way or another. Another 21 buildings have followed suit where the city has not directly supported the development. So today we have got 43 buildings that are completely reused and renovated and are turned back into residential use, with more buildings following up, because you see, this is a long process. When you started with a building, it usually takes 4 or 5 years until there are actually the final results to be seen. And also the 100 buildings that we focus on here today are not all the buildings that we're working on, since then new buildings have been added who are at some stage of the development. In the following map, you can see the Sonnenberg neighborhood with how it looked in 2012. The black buildings are those that we've identified at the very beginning as problematic. And on the right, you can see that the black buildings have been reduced significantly. There are only a handful left. But many buildings, the dark blue ones, are finished renovating, and the light blue ones are in the process of being renovated, and also the yellow ones. So you can see that there has actually been a chance, and this has been recognized by the city administration, and also of course, also by the general public in Chemnitz, that there is actually something moving again in those neighborhoods that have been very problematic in the past years. So this was also one of the reasons why the city of Chemnitz decided to apply for the accreditation as URBACT Good Practice in 2017. So the agency has been awarded URBACT Good Practice 2017, which really reflected on the results, the approach also that we have with the project, and the methodology that we used, that can be transferred, that has some significance also for other cities who would like to go in a similar process like we do. So at this point, I would just like to hand over to Frank, because we didn't stop at the good practice, but we continued on with more projects. And I
Thank
hope
you,
that the
Martin.
slide will show in a few seconds.
Yes, slide number 16. Our European journey begins. Yeah, understanding, adapting, and reusing. Those are the main ideas that are behind the URBACT Altbau network. So in 2018, as Martin and a very brief characterization. So, and as you see, even though our size differs in terms of inhabitants, and even though we have a different economic situation, we all face the same problem, which is our high vacancy rates in apartments or in entire buildings that are in neighborhoods with a strategic importance for the sustainable development of our cities, I would say. Next slide, please. And URBACT and the URBACT networks are built on the idea that a lead partner, in that case CHEMNITZ, has an important or has a very good URBACT practice to share, and this partner transfers its knowledge. So how did we manage that know-how transfer process? And this know-how transfer was never one-directed. I have to point that out. So we, during these 7 transnational meetings and the series of webinars since 2020, we learned so many things from our partners, how they approached the task to form this agency, and everything was structured around more or less 6 transfer topics, and you can read about all of those on urbact.eu, the Altbau network website. You can see the link on that site too. So the transfer topics. Next slide, please. First of all, of course, is setting up the institution who handles this management process. And of course, different cities have different challenges, they have different resources and also different stakeholders. This all needs to be reflected in the creation of the agency locally. So therefore, and we talked about that in our kickoff meeting in Serra. Second transfer topic, we will speak about that today, just after this presentation, which is about inventory and monitoring of vacant and derelict buildings and flats. The GIS plays a very important role if it comes to that topic. The third transfer topic is publication marketing of vacant and derelict buildings and flats. And this topic, transfer topic, focuses around the question, what kind of marketing tools work best in our highly diverse buildings and neighborhoods. Transfer topic number 4, contacting, activating, and supporting owners. We will hear more about that in our session at 10 o'clock, and it focuses around the question how owners are enabled to either rehab their buildings or how they are helped to sell their property to someone else who is rehabbing the buildings or flats. The 5th transfer topic, we will speak about that after lunch break and get some input from our partners Villafranca and Riga, and also from CHEMNITZ. And the 6th transfer topic, connecting and coordinating public and private stakeholders, will be our second last session today at 15 o'clock. And it's about connecting and coordinating the public and private stakeholders that all also vary in different occasions, if it comes to different buildings, if it comes to the different cities. So there was the last transfer topic. Thank you very much, Martin. What else should I say? What else do we need to say in order to welcome our hosts, our guests this morning?
Actually, one thing that is very important to me, that is important to us, is that this webinar is not just about listening and hearing some interesting topics, but really to encourage you to get started with the whole process. We did a transfer process in the past 2.5 years together with 6 partners. And we learned and produced a few guides that might help you really to get started yourself. You do not really need an URBACT network really to transfer this and to take it further. So we produced this guidebook and the good practice compilation, which we encourage you to download and have a closer look at, that picks up on all the topics that we talked about today and that we will talk about and much more. So we encourage you really to understand, learn about the good practice, and what we did to adapt it to your local situation and to reuse it. And we're really excited to see things moving on in your cities.